Special Branch and MI6 officer and the author of Black Ops.
I was undercover for Special Branch in a jihadi organisation.
If you'd like to help Carlton keep producing the Black Spy podcast and receive episodes and information that's only available to Carlton's special Patreon agents, then you can donate as little as £3, €4 or $5 a month by signing up with Patreon. See the Black Spy podcast notes or Google Patreon Black Spy podcast and pledge your monthly amount. You can even win the opportunity to be a guest on the show. Thanks for listening. And don't forget to subscribe for free.
My name is Carlton King, and welcome to the Black Spy Podcast, the show which shines a light on the world of secret intelligence, national security, and armed governmental personal protection operations, as well as what we really do, to be fair, is look at the world of geopolitics. You know, everything that surrounds us, the things that go on, the things that we don't know about, the things we do know about, or even the things we think we know about, but we probably really don't. And here we come on to one today. It's going to be a look at the behest of my guest, I hasten to add, whom I'm doing more and more podcasts with because I think she's great and I think we function well together. And we get some subjects that come out. She is the intrepid reporter and publicist, Firgas Esack. Good evening to you, Fergus.
Good evening, Carlton. Good evening, and thank you, because this one's been a long time coming. And I'll just tell your listeners that there are, I'm lucky enough to count Carlton as a close friend, and there have been so many times when we've had this chat before, and we've said, let's pause this chat, let's save it for the podcast, because it's something that I personally find interesting. So what we're going to talk about today is the disappearance of Madeline McCann. Now,
Absolutely.
let's do the responsible thing here, Carlton. Let's do the responsible thing. I would like to preface this with saying that if anybody does actually know anything about the case, or if anyone, we report it to the appropriate sources. We are not in any way, what we're discussing here is opinion, as with all of these other discussions. But
Absolutely correct.
But the reason why I'm bringing this to the forefront is because I come at this, as your listeners might know by now, from the media side, and you obviously come at this from the side of the law. And to me, there has never been the word media circus has never been bandied about more than in this case. 8 million children go missing every year.
Is that an actual figure?
That's an actual figure, right? That's an actual figure. And almost £12 million has been spent by the government on the Madeline McCann case. This doesn't count, by the way, the fundraising or the private donations, right? How has one little girl become the face of every missing child in the world?
Yeah. I mean, first I'll preface your 8 million figure with, of course, you've looked at the figures. You are super into the Madeline McCann situation because of your media background and because you know what the media generally do for such cases and don't. Now, what we've got to say is, obviously what we'll preface on that is that the vast majority of those missing persons are unfortunately in countries whereby individuals don't really get a fair crack of the whip. And and everybody who listens to the programme knows my sort of sentiment about what we could call the global south, the third world, whatever terminology you want to use. And, some of those people at 8, 7, 6, even as early as that, not so much now, I hasten to add, which is great, but in the past, have even been fighting wars. I can think back to Sierra Leone. I can think back to, Somalia still today. Young people out there fighting at 12, 13, 14, younger, down to 8, to be fair, fighting wars, and they have been kidnapped, and nobody talks about them. But let's bring it to the West. So let's bring it to the West, and let's bring it to the wealthy East. So if you look talking about Japan, China, etc.
While we're talking numbers, I mean, even the latest suspect, even Christian Brücker, or whatever say his name, the German guy that the Germans, the German police are convinced is the prime suspect. Even he has been convicted of 5 other abductions and murders.
Nobody knows about it. Absolutely.
But nobody knows about it.
It's
right?
true. It's true. It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true.
It's like those other 5 little girls that you did away with. Well, yeah, that's just
and that's in the West. Absolutely, you're right. You're right. Absolutely.
Madeline McCann,
Absolutely. It is interesting. Why? Okay, your media. So now I'm going to push it straight onto your media shoulders.
Push it back.
Why do you think your people actually put such an effort into Madeline McCann and not to others? Let's say that.
Well, exactly, but let's just rewind to the actual situation, though, Carlton, because we've speculated on this so many times.
Yeah.
This happened in a Mark Warner resort, right?
Yes.
It's the sort of resort that it's a they've got quite a defined customer base. Yes. We kind of know the sort of people that go there. This was obviously, they're dubbed the Tapas 7, aren't they? The family that went, but they went there for the tennis and the sailing, and they went there for the social mixed, and we know what the situation was like with all the apartments, and we've seen all the reconstructions and all the rest of it. And I think that what's interesting, before I even put myself in a position as a publicist, I have to take a step back as a parent. I've got 4 children, and when the first when I hear the narrative of the case, when I hear the narrative of what happened, right? So like we all know, they went out for dinner. They were the other side of the pool at a restaurant. They were doing these, random checks, however they were doing these checks.
You mean random checks back into the flat you're talking about?
Yeah. So what they were doing was every 20 minutes, allegedly, right? The parents were supposed to be going back from the tapas restaurant to their apartment, which was unlocked, going in via the back patio door, checking on the children, and then going back to the restaurant. Now, the alarm bells that go off in my head as a parent, just as basic instinct, is that it was about 100 meters from where the restaurant was to the apartment, to apartment 5A, right? But it wasn't as the crow flies. You had to go through a tunnel, so you couldn't see the apartment from where you were sat, right? You had to go through a tunnel, you had to go around a pool, and then you'd go past a hedge and into a back patio door that they'd left unlocked, and then to go and check on the children, right? And apparently, allegedly, they were doing this every 20 minutes. Now, come on, again, as an adult, when you're out for dinner with a group of adults, really, did that happen every 20 minutes? Well, who knows? But
now, may I ask you, because you're tied closely to it. Now, may I ask you, is this every parent doing it every 20 minutes, or is one parent taking it on for them all?
Well, exactly. A parent, yeah, exactly. So
craziness.
This is how the narrative went, right? Yeah, crazy, right? Because why bother? Why would you bother? Why not just put the children in the creche?
Right. This is what I want to say. Sorry, I'm just going to have to jump in very quickly because I do want to say. Go on. No. But
also, let me just finish the point. So they went and they did the first check, like Jerry did the first check. Yep. Then one of the other party was checking his own kids, so he said, "Oh, I'll check yours," right? And check them. And then she went, and then Kate went and checked the third time, which was 10 o'clock at night, and she came, and again, as a parent, you know, in my head, she came back to the restaurant screaming, "Someone's taken Madeleine," and that's how this was reported. Now, to me, you know, I've got 4 kids, right? If I had a 3-year-old and 2 2-year-olds left in an unlocked apartment at a holiday resort where it's hotter than it might normally be, there might be a noisy party going on next door, and they know that their parents are across the way opposite the pool. My first instinct wouldn't be that someone had taken them. My first instinct would be that they'd let themselves out because they'd woken up, right? It's, you know, the 2-year-old twins were walking at the time, and Madeleine was obviously 3. You know, if you'd have left your children in an apartment that was unlocked in an unknown place.
Can I put something to you? Can I put something to you, my friend?
Yeah.
Right. You know me. You know I'm a half-class warrior. You know, let's make it open. Let's say I'm a half-class warrior, right? So I'm going to say this: as a half-class warrior, upper working class, whatever you want to state me as, I'm not thinking, nor is my wife. Now, of course, I'm middle class now and blah, blah, but we come from this working class. I'm not thinking in any way, shape or means to leave my children alone. I'm sorry, I'm just not doing it.
Well,
now,
no, exactly.
What I'm hearing from a lot of circumstance, I'm hearing people say, "Oh, it's acceptable." And I heard people from your particular media background, BBC News, etc. "Oh, we all do it, don't we? Leave our kids on holiday." No, we don't. It doesn't happen. Why are you leaving your kids alone? That's the first thing that I want to talk about.
Well,
because it's wrong.
But also,
it's
Carl,
wrong.
to your point, right? So when Kate McCann went running back to the Tapas 7, to the Tapas restaurant, screaming, "Someone's taken Madeleine," where were the other twins?
Exactly.
Like,
Don't you pick them up and think, "Well, hang on, Madeleine's gone, so best I'll look after these 2. Wouldn't you think that?
Left them, right? And then when they went out searching all night, where were the twins?
Exactly. This is what I'm saying. So this is the first point I'm making. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening, you know, please tell me if I'm wrong. Please write in. I mean, tell us if I'm wrong. Why are you leaving your kids alone? I don't understand that. So my first perspective is I do not understand the kids being left alone. Secondly, let me give you some, because people listen to this from around the world, let me give you some contextual background. If you are in Southern Europe, okay, particularly the Iberian Peninsula, they love children. There is no problem at 4 o'clock in the morning having with you your 2-year-old, 1-year-old, 8-year-old, 5-year-old, whatever figure you want to put on it, sitting with you while you're eating. It's not like maybe in some Northern European aspects where they might look on you a little bit, or even to the extent sort of East Coast American perspective, well, what's the children doing here? No, in Southern Europe, they like the children there. There is, you know, there's nothing stopping them having those children in the prams or whatever they put them in. Nothing stopping them at all. Do you know what I mean? You know where I'm coming from there on this one, Fergus?
100%. You know, like, gosh, when my eldest was a baby, we traveled around Europe, like, you know, with him in tow, because you could just take him anywhere. And yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, even you know, the same sort of experience. Like, and also, again, to me, like, as a parent, like, why would you take your kids on holiday and not, you
exactly.
know, and
not be with them,
and then just leave them on the road? But anyway,
let me put you on challenge though first before we do that, and then come back to your point, please. Why? And now I'm pointing a finger. You can't see it, but I'm pointing a finger. Why did your media people not make more of this aspect?
Well, what I would say, what I would throw back at you, Carlton, right, is actually it was the Portuguese police who turned on them first. It wasn't the media who turned on them first. It was actually so. No,
but I mean, for leaving the kids, why did the British media not say, who are these people leaving their children? Because I never once saw that in any British media.
Exactly. No, absolutely. That they didn't, and that was criminal. But actually, what's interesting is that it was a freelance journalist who broke the whole story, because it was a guy called John Clark. He was the only guy who was out there, the only British guy who was out there. I mean, nothing happens in the Algarve really to report on. You know, he was basically out there. It was the Mirror that broke the story first, I think, and then the Sun broke it second, and then I think the Mail. But you know, all kind of in quick succession. I mean, obviously this happened in the night, and I think maybe they got this out in the afternoon or got it out for the next day. But this guy was sent down there, and he was sort of sent down there thinking he'd be down there for a couple of hours, and then obviously he was down there for years.
As was the snapper, whom I know personally.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. As was the snapper that you know personally.
But that's a photographer, for those who don't know, the media lingo.
But what's interesting is that the Portuguese police, and I mean, I know you know the way the Portuguese police work quite well, because it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's like they've got different policing. So this would have been originally like the regional police, wouldn't it? And then it was escalated up to like the national police, and then it was escalated up to the you know the
detective agency. Yeah,
right. But the regional guys were sort of like, oh, you know, she's just toddled off somewhere. Should we, you know, like, you know, chill out or whatever? And then the first thing the British media were getting was Kate McCann, Kate's hysteria, you know, and it was like, you know, this has happened. And
can I ask you though? You've used. I don't want for people to think we're unfair. Hysteria, wrong word.
It could be, but it was interesting. I mean, look, you know, I mean, it's obviously a horrible situation for any parent. You know, let's like we're not belittling this, but there was a real sort of there was a disparity between what the Portuguese police were saying to them at the time, which was like, you know, look, she'll come back, or, you know, she's just gone, she's just toddled off, or look, you know, and everybody was there, and they were sending out the search troops and all the rest of it, and then the TV cameras were kind of on Kate McCann, like, you know, basically saying, you know, someone's taken her, she's gone, you know, it's like you know, and it was all now, yeah, you know, it's a horrible situation. No one knows how they're going to react, and no one's prompted to you know, we're not being judgmental about how she reacted.
Good. That's what I just want to say. Yeah,
we're absolutely not being judgmental. But what the British press, and bear in mind, it was the Mirror, the Sun, and the Mail that picked up on this first. You know, what the headlines that they were seeing were you know, blonde girl snatched from resort.
Correct.
You know. Correct.
I always thought that was, you know, over the top. You know, oh, they only want a blonde girl. You know, why? How do you know? Do you know the person who's done it? If it's been done, why only a blonde girl?
Exactly. But to throw this back at you, you know, that the media was predicting the crime.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying.
They don't know. The problem, wasn't it?
Can I put something else to you, which I think has been proved, and you'll know it better than me, because you look, I'm not part of this investigation in any way, shape, or means. I was doing completely different things when this was happening. Yes, I was a detective inspector. That's the mantle that I had. But my work was in terror, in espionage, in protection, etc., national security protection operations. So I'm not going to pretend to be, as the Germans would say, a Klugscheißer, which is a clever person after the event, right? I'm not going to pretend to be that, but what I would say is this. Now tell me if I'm wrong. As I understand it, the McCanns did say that they sedated their children.
And they were both qualified anaesthetists as well.
Absolutely. Is this correct though? Because I've not responded to anybody about the case, because it wasn't my business, but you know, and you've been speaking to many people, is it correct that seemingly they said they did, so that they sedated them? Now, I asked myself a question. Why do you sedate your children?
Well, as a parent of you know, as a parent, when any of my kids were age 3 and 2, if we were on holiday, there's no way I'd expect them to be sleeping through the night. And especially, I mean, gosh, I think the last.
But this is the point. They said apparently they sedated them so they would sleep through the night and wouldn't disturb their night out. That to itself is craziness.
Well, exactly. So my response to that is, it's plausible, because how else would they sleep through the noise of however many apartments, however many adjacent apartments, however many adults going out for dinner, however many doors banging, however many people coming in and out, and being in an unfamiliar bedroom?
So therein we come to theory number 1, isn't it? Well, and you've obviously heard the theory, haven't you?
To be honest,
which is that the sedation went wrong.
Yeah.
And Madeline died. That's the primary theory, wasn't it?
That was the primary theory, exactly.
Right.
But also, I mean, the last resort holiday that we took my kids on, my second son, who's now 8, was 2 at the time. Mm-hmm. And they were the kids were in bunk beds, mm-hmm. and they were sort of in an adjacent room, and they managed to even just trying to find the bathroom in the night, they managed to lock themselves, to open the door into the hallway, lock themselves out, and then
there you go,
get into a tears, right?
And that's easily done. Yeah,
and it's totally easily done. But then factor in the fact that the patio door of this apartment was open. It's
wide open, yeah, as you're saying.
It was wide open. So I mean, show me a 2 or 3 year old that's going to sleep through when you've got drunken parents staggering back to apartment 5B and apartment 5C next door.
Again, for fairness, Fergus, you know me, Fergus. I'm the fairness man. Incarnated, probably is a better word. Yeah, I'm the fairness man. Do we know there was drunkenness there?
Well, Kate McCann herself said that even before she went out that night, she'd had a glass of wine.
Okay, so we do know that.
They'd been the first people to arrive at the restaurant, and they'd ordered the wine at the table.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a tapas restaurant. I mean, who goes for tapas and doesn't have
doesn't invite? Okay, I'm with you. I'm trying to just play the nice guy.
I know, and I love this. I love this. But it's also, it's Portugal. It's hot,
Mm-hmm.
So one of the bits of initial evidence when they came back was that they said that the window was open. Well, again, as a parent, I would have had the windows open anyway.
So let's look at this. Another angle that I've always thought about when I've thought about this case. There are 2 sleeping young children about 2 years of age, I think. Are they a bit younger? I can't remember. Again,
they were 2. They were 2 at the time, and
sleeping young children.
Toddling, but twins,
twins. 2 sleeping young twins, and then you've got 1 child who's like 3 coming to 4. Yeah, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Correct. Right. I'm the guy who's come in. So let's say it is this. There's some guys come in taking the child. When I come into that room, I've got a choice of 3 children, haven't I?
Exactly.
Do I take the older child who can speak out and say, this is not my, assuming the original premise was it's a child to order. That was apparently the original premise. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Am I wrong? That was all of, the media people were saying. A blonde child to order. They wanted a blonde child to order. Well, why wouldn't you take the 2 younger ones who won't remember within a year, maybe 2, who their parents are? Why are you taking the person who can say it all day long?
I don't know anything about the child black market, but surely blonde twins you get more for, right?
The price of one. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I hear exactly what you're saying. It doesn't make sense to take the more difficult individual than to take the easier opportunities that have presented themselves? Or am I just wrong?
Absolutely. I've vocalized this before with you. My cousin, so my aunt took my cousin when he was born traveling around Europe, like for the first year of his life, and you know, sort of it ended up making this a bit of a regular. That's what they did in the summer holidays. And there was a point when he was about 5 that they were in Italy, and she was stood in the queue in the post office, and you know, he had very blonde hair and was very blue-eyed, and somebody just snatched him, and my cousin just screamed his head off and bit the guy, and so he put him back.
Right.
And but it's like that, isn't it? It's like, why take the stroppy one? Why not just take the docile one? But
the one that's not going to bite you, the one and if they've sedated them, the two that are sedated, you know, they're not going to wake up.
But Carlton, this does bring us on. This does nicely segue to theory 2, which is the fact that now that because you know, when the twins were. The twins weren't interviewed at the time, but they were subsequently interviewed later, and they reported that somebody was in the room the night before.
Right.
And even that there is even some transcript somewhere about that Kate McCann acknowledges that Madeline had said to her that morning, "Mummy, why didn't you come to us when the twins and I were crying last night?"
Right, let me be devil's advocate. Right, because this is new to me. Right, let me imagine this happened. Kate McCann, because obviously they've been left before then. That means, they've been left.
Well, they've been left every night. The thing is, they've been left every night because the TAPS 7, as the media dubbed them, right?
Yep.
They decided when they got to this Mark Warner resort, even though that there's a creche.
And that's what I can't understand as well. Why would you put them in a creche?
You can have a creche or you can have a babysitter in your room or whatever. They decided that they didn't want to disrupt the children's routines because the continental creche hours were different to, you know, their own children's routines. So instead they'd just sort of constructed this thing that every night they were going to go for dinner at the same place, they blocked at the same table, they'd come up with this convoluted system of baby watching that they called it. I don't how in my head it's like, God, if I was on holiday and going for dinner every night and having to get up every 20 minutes, and I'd just be like, oh, bugger it, I'll just put them in the creche, for goodness sake.
Well, exactly, doesn't that exactly? Or I'll just bring them with me.
Or just bring them out, you know,
because that's what probably everybody else is. But what I'm thinking straight away, what I think in the defensive aspect of them is maybe the person they saw the night before was one of the TAPS 7 who was looking on behalf of somebody else, of them. Is that potentially correct?
It could well have been, but also back to your former point, if they were drugged, who knows?
Exactly. Well, my point is this: maybe they didn't drug them that other night, but when they realised they got up because their mate saw them the night before, maybe they thought, well, let's solve all the problem and just let's drug them so they sleep all the way through. Which again shows to me very, very bad parenting. I mean, everything done seems to be, I think I can say this without being negative, it's just absolutely poor parenting. And this is where I come back to you again. You know, we have this battle, don't we? The press never made anything of the absolutely outrageous parenting. Drugging them, leaving them alone, being told, as you're now telling me, that the night before there was somebody in there, even if they thought that was, you know, the guy who said, I'll look at him on your behalf, and he did that the night before, or they were all doing it for each other. It's just bad parenting all round. I'm telling you what, if they were from Liverpool talking like that, like lad, and then the kid went missing and they said, you know what we did is we sent people in every 20 minutes, like, after we've had a bevy. People would be saying, oh, they're outrageous. But there was none of that against the McCanns. None of it.
Agreed, 100% agreed. And to be honest, to preface what you said before, to be honest, Carlton, you're Carlton King. I think you can say what you like. I think you're pretty much untouchable, mate.
Well, I don't know. I want to be fair. I'm trying to be fair to people. I don't. It's a traumatic thing, and if as one is led to believe they have nothing to do with the disappearance of their child, then it's absolutely traumatic. And I don't want to allege anything else. All I'm saying is the parenting thereof.
Let's just say, okay, so let's go on to the allegation side, right? Because you've worked with the Portuguese police,
yes,
right? And actually, it's quite a big thing for them to have turned on the McCanns as suspects.
I think so. Yeah,
right. It's quite a big thing for them to, but just to sort of build this story out, actually, I mean, I know you say that, I mean, actually, the media was accountable. I mean, the Express paid out about 800 grand in damages for accusing them, right? And the Sun pays. The Sun didn't go to court about it, but I think they voluntarily donated about $1 million, right, for defamation, right? But it wasn't, none of this was these were just voluntary payments.
Right. Okay.
Because
and I'm giving the benefit of the doubt. I'm being fair as well. I think you need to be fair. But all I'm saying is,
you are being. We're all being fair. But all I'm saying, Carlton, is the thing is, like, this is all fairy dust, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, still no one knows who done it, right? So like, you can like, the Express can give out all the money in the world, but actually, then if it turns out that they did do it, well. Do you know what I mean? I
mean, we can't know that. I mean, my point is this: we can't know that. What is the bigger picture for me here? The bigger picture for me here is I know, and I think I can say this. I know that if that was a working class Liverpudlian family, right? I know they're going to be hammered in the paper for what they've done.
Well, if it was a working class if it was a working class Liverpudlian family, we wouldn't still be talking about this.
Well, that's okay.
17 years later, would we?
So tell me why? Why? Tell me why.
But also, Carlton, so just to go back to the policing, because obviously this is your knowledge. Right? The Portuguese police, I personally feel like for them to turn on the McCanns as prime suspects, was a huge thing because the way that their police structure works, and to actually flip it on its head was quite a big thing, right?
Yes, I'm not going to argue that. But then let me put a preface in it again, because I need to get it absolutely right. When I worked with Portuguese, I'm working with them in the field of terror, so I'm not working in this normal criminal field at all, right? But what I would say is this. They have on them massive pressure from the United Kingdom government. The Prime Minister of the day is talking about it. So it's not as though it's something that it's just a case you can just throw to the side. So when that, I think he was in judicial inspector, when he then started saying these are the suspects, he really is taking something on. He really is. Because his country then is embroiled in a diplomatic outrage in some ways. For they've gone and said, can our police, Scotland Yard, Leicestershire police, can they help investigate in the offence? Can this happen? Can that happen? And then for them to turn on the family, that's really tough. So I can only imagine that he, making them a primary suspect as he did under their regulations, that he really believed that was the case. I don't know anything about the evidence, so I'm not going to say one way or the other. But he must really have thought that.
Yeah, exactly. But also, I mean, there were a whole, plethora of suspects who, that again,
that they looked at first. They didn't just jump straight onto them.
That they looked at, and then, and again, you know, the press just jumped on them as soon as there was a suspect. They wanted that person to be. They wanted to nail that person. You know, it was like
absolutely, yeah, that's true.
There was a guy, Robert Murat or something. I think he was the original suspect.
Yes, yeah, the guy who was
the estate agent,
yeah.
and they just, you know, the British press just turned on him, and they like that, you know, it was like he's got a wonky eye, so obviously he did it.
Absolutely, made his life hell.
Yeah, and then they went after the guy who built his website, and it was like, well, he's obviously an accomplice because he built his website, you know, and that was all the British media's, you know, that was the media doing. But, you know, for police who were there from the offset, investigating the case, to then suddenly turn on the parents, I just think is quite interesting. I can't dispute that.
I can't dispute that. That's interesting. You know what the Spanish say, not Portuguese. He would say cojones. Yeah, for him to turn around and basically, where everything's going in the other angle, to turn around and suggest that the family of the grieving family is at fault is massive.
It's huge, isn't it? And it's so interesting because it's like, just imagine, just put that into context of any other crime.
Yeah, it's massive. It's massive. And of course he was sued at some stage, wasn't he?
He was, yeah, exactly. And then your mate DC, David Cameron, right, overturned it, didn't he?
Yeah.
So even more. I mean, you know, again, we can talk about this, but actually I'm not going to talk about this because it's boring, but you know, the fact that there was so much that, you know, that the public, the money, the taxpayers' money that's gone into this case, you know, outside of donations, you know, private donations. I mean, Philip Green put in like $250,000, Simon Cowell put in like $500,000, like there was, you know, that there were loads of football clubs that donated and stuff like that. I mean, so it's like
it became a cause celeb. It became a cause celeb, didn't it?
It did, didn't it? It completely did. But even at the point when everybody said, like, look, let's just call Operation Granger Day, let's just knock it on the head, you know, then it was David Cameron who
and said we will continue investigating. Absolutely, when government will put the money in directly, won't come from police funds. Exactly. And I know it's a massive. But I ask you, as the media, why?
Well, I again go flipping back to, if this was a working class family from Liverpool, would David Cameron have stepped in and said, no, let's just keep the case going at, you know, bugger the.
So can I ask you then, Fergus? Can I ask you, are you saying that there was a political gain because of the middle class nature? That there were so many middle class families who were so orientated to it that Cameron thought, I can't allow this to drop because it will be bad for for the political party, for the Tory party. Is that what you're saying to me?
I think you've nailed it. You know, I mean, even now, like, do you know what I mean? Even if Larry the cat didn't have his own wasn't getting enough Instagram followers, like, you know, the Tory party would feel like they'd let down the middle class. But, you know, heaven forbid that they don't look like they're supporting Madeline McCann, the most famous missing person of all time. You know what I mean? Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. You know, like you know, show me the names and the faces of the 5 other girls that the German suspect murdered.
Right, brilliant segue. Because now we be fair and we bring it now to the German investigation. So what is I think it's out of Wuppertal or somewhere like that. What is the advantage of the Staatsanwalt, which is the district attorney, in that area to turn around and say this guy's done it? What is his advantage? They must surely believe this is the case.
Well, seemingly they do. They just can't. I mean, you tell me why they can't say whether he has or hasn't killed her.
Well, from what I heard from the district attorney, And I only know the news of it. I haven't seen anything else. And I watched, when it came on, I watched the German TV to see what he was saying on there. From what I know from there was basically what they were saying is this guy was wanted in Germany, as you've mentioned already, for doing what he's been doing. And he's known as a paedophile, etc., etc., etc. And they somehow, and I'm trying to remember what the connection was that made the Germans think that was it. He was in prison on the other charges. And he then said, whilst in prison, to a fellow prisoner, I'm the person who stole Madeline McCann.
Yeah, and there's some other hearsay about how he said, "Oh, I'm going to Praia da Luz, to do a down and dirty job, and you might not see me again," or something like that. But the media jumped on the things the media jumped on were completely laughable. Like he's got a camper van. He's got an allotment, so obviously he's a killer. I mean, he has been, so we do know that. So let's, we're being fair to everybody. So he has been, so that is a real fact. Now, the only problems that I would say is, remember, they brought a guy in. All allotment owners and camper van.
Exactly. They brought a guy in from the Met, didn't they? A top dog handler who worked with the cadaver dogs in the Met. And they brought him in to search the McCann's vehicle because the Portuguese didn't have it. And if you remember, he was the one who said, the dog has found traces here in the kitchen, and the dog has found traces in the McCann's vehicle. Remember that?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely.
You don't?
Yeah.
Or you do? You don't? I don't want to, because you're the one who's looked at it. So you do remember that.
Little sandwich.
What happened with that?
They found they found DNA, they found hair, they found all sorts of stuff in the kid's car. Honestly, to be honest,
but which would be there, wouldn't it?
Well, which
would be there? That's normal, isn't it?
If he looks in my car, it's disgusting, right? But there's ice lollies from like last week. There's stinky there's stinky tennis shoes. There's I'm sure you could find anything if you look for it hard enough. But
so that's not evidential. But this is the point that is what that guy apparently said. I think he was a sergeant in the dog section. What he said is, no, it's not just as that there's DNA there. That's to be expected. It's that the dog is trying to look for dead bodies. So we're not looking for a live body. The dog is coming up with something because he thinks something was dead in the vehicle. That's the point. Dead human bodies. That's what this guy was saying. Sorry, not this guy. The officer, the sergeant. That's what he was apparently saying. Now, again, I'm not immersed in the case like you have been. So
I'm just a geek,
But you've done and you've got your connections, haven't you? You've got people in the Sun who you knew, and this and etc. etc. So the point I'm making is that bit we'd need to cover. So there's the bit with the German, which is positive around it not being anything to do with the most closest people to them, but there's the bit with the dog aspect which suggests that it might be, and of course that ties in with the Portuguese police, the senior investigating officer for the Portuguese police, who said this is who we think the suspects are, and we're not looking for anybody else. So those are the two ends of that long line, of which anywhere between those two ends something has taken place. That has never been my argument. My argument has always been it was bad parenting. Night after night after night, leaving your children alone. And I cannot get my head around this sedating people. That's clearly got to be dangerous no matter what you're doing, hasn't it?
100%. And we've always agreed on this. But another thing, like from the media perspective, is let's just say hypothetically, if Madeline McCann was alive, like if she's alive right now, is right now,
hopefully she is. Hopefully she is.
She'd be 17 years old, right?
Yes.
She'd be on social media.
You would have thought so.
Right? Unless
maybe she don't know who she is. Is that a possibility? I know there's been long-term kidnaps before.
It could be a possibility, but at some point might the penny drop, right? You know,
Very true. Look, I'm trying to play, for both sides.
do you remember? Right? Okay, Carlton. There's that book. There's that kids' book. I mean, it's made into a film, which is called The Parent Trap, but the German version is called Lottie and Lisa,
Mhm.
and it's about these two twin girls who are separated at birth, but then they meet on a summer camp, and then they sort of realise who they are,
Mhm.
and they realise that they're related, and then they try and get their parents back together, and blah 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 blah. Right? I mean, Disney took it like
Right. Okay.
to the 11th%, but I read it originally in the German version, which was a little harsher.
Yeah.
If she was 17, do you not think the penny would have that she, at some point she would be like, the most publicized missing person in the entire world is this person, and hey,
absolutely, and I've no defense for that other than what was the Österreicher, the Austrian guy who had the women kept underground in his house.
Oh yeah, well yeah.
Right,
well, yeah,
so
but
that might be another event.
Yeah, well, that might be another event. That might be another event.
But she's not free, in other words. She's living tied somewhere. That's another potential, isn't it?
Yeah, she could totally be living tied somewhere, but
I mean, look.
Oh, okay. Let's just rewind back to the German guy. Right?
Yes.
Let's just rewind back to the German guy, because he's obviously the prime suspect and in the news at the moment. All that.
Yes.
Right. Why would he have taken her?
That's the big one.
Because she was 3 years old.
No, he may be a dastardly fella doing dastardly things.
He might be,
that we don't want to really.
Why would you go to the effort, right? If you live in Germany, why would you go all the way to
That is the big problem with the case.
To take a 3-year-old?
That's the big problem with the case.
In your camper van to come back to murder her.
That's the big problem with the case. He can get enough blonde girls in Germany to do what he wants.
Exactly.
If that's what he's looking for.
And he already has 5. He's already got 5 in his allotment graveyard.
Correct. If he just happens to be there, that's a different game. He just happened to be there.
But the whole point was, they said,
the
whole sort of the media reporting of it was, he said to his mate,
correct.
Oh, I'm going to Praia de Luz to do a job, and but why would you go all that way?
That doesn't make sense. So then
we go into theory 4, which is, did they just sell her into
the person who took her? You mean?
Huh?
The person who took her, did he just sell her?
No. Did the I mean, there has been this theory as well, that the parents just
No, come on. I've never. Yeah, is that a theory?
It is a theory. Yeah, it's a horrible theory, but again, we're looking at. We're just analysing all of this, aren't we? We're not.
Absolutely.
We're not laying blame. We're not laying blame.
We can't lay blame. But to me, that sounds a crazy theory. To me, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
But okay, Carlton. Why would anybody? Why would someone in Germany go after go all that way to Portugal to get a 3-year-old?
Well, see, as I originally understood the German aspect was that he just happened to be there. But you're now telling me something, because I'm not obviously keeping up to date with the case. You're obviously telling me something I didn't know. You're telling me that he actually said to someone he went there purposefully for this occasion. And that seems a little bit stretched to me. Just to me.
To me too, because why would you? I mean, why would you? Like you say, you could get... he'd already got 5 girls in his grave.
Well, what I understood he did, this guy, tell me if I'm wrong, is he raped and beat some 70 to 80-year-old woman, right?
Yes.
In Portugal. He did that. He basically was beating and forcing girls 14 to do some sexual acts with him in that. He raped a 20-year-old. He was exposing himself to sort younger 10, younger, etc., and to other younger people exposing. He's a real outlandish, crazy, nasty, dastardly individual. I didn't know that he killed X amount of other people, seemingly. But if this is the case with this guy and he just happens to be there, that's one thing. But that's not what the Staatsanwalt was seemingly saying, the district attorney was seemingly saying. He seemed to be saying that there was a purposeful act to be there. Now, I didn't understand it as you said it, that he said to a mate, hey, listen, I'm going out there. The way I understood it is he said to a guy in the prison where he was, said, hey, listen, this is what I did. Now, I just thought maybe this guy's just boasting. Maybe he's such a weird guy and the guy with him is so weird that they think that's great. That he says, oh, I'm the one who did McCann. Maybe he thinks that's great. Well, we're all basically find it revolting. This guy seemingly thinks it's great. And maybe the guy he's saying it to thinks it's great. That's what, as I understood it. And you're now telling me something different.
Well, all I'd say is, do you know what I mean? Like, to me, it seems geographically incongruous.
Correct.
Like how? Why would a person that's like? Okay, I mean, like, all right, I know where you live, but let's say, why would I go all the way to Norway to buy eggs?
Yeah, I mean, this is the point. If he happened to be there, I could take the story. I've got no problem with that. If he just happens to be there and just happens to see Madeline or happens to see what's happening. See, that's the other thing which we got to hit on because, before time starts running. The other thing is, how does the let's call them kidnapper but we're not actually just talking about kidnapper, but let's just say, how does the kidnapper know to actually take Madeline McCann? Do you get what I'm saying?
100%.
What's the element to that?
And this is what's interesting to me because you've obviously got a vision. Your MI6 experience means that you've got a vision of the criminal underworld. Like, what's the worth of a 3-year-old?
Well, that would actually be more in my police aspect. They give me a better understanding rather than in the security intelligence service. But yeah, you ask? Look, if there was a worth involved, and you're looking to take somebody, right, worth involved, you're looking to take a specific, a not specific, because unless they're going to say, I want that particular young girl there, if you're going to say, let's take a person to be, right, let's make it concrete. We all know about the cases that went on in Spain and were sold on to Argentinians. And then it spread out from Argentines to others in South America. We all know about those cases back in the days of Franco. You familiar with that, yeah?
Well, I think, yes, I am, because you've spoken about this before, but I think you should narrate this for your readers.
Right, okay. So basically what happened is the Catholic nuns in various places, not just in one place, but in Madrid, in Canterbury, and then in various other places, basically were selling children to families who could not have children in Spanish-speaking South America, which is most of it, with exception.
So it was kind of like IVF, but at least you know what you
Correct. So poor people come off the street as a general rule, or oftentimes you look for vulnerable mothers without fathers or whatever, and they say, oh, your child's died. And basically what they did is they sent that child off and sold them, not just, I'm a nun trying to do nicely, not sold them to South America. Now, that's one thing. And I can see that happening because you've got a baby who doesn't know any better. So these people are brought up as the child of these wealthy individuals in, from Argentina to, I don't know, all the way up to Colombia, let's say, right? Spanish-speaking areas. Great. I can see that. That makes absolute sense. It's difficult because you've got to move the child across borders, but it can be done, right? That's not what we're talking about, though, is it? We're talking about somebody who can speak, who understands who they are, who knows what the background is, is fully educated, even at that age, so knows who the mother is and who the father is. That's now a much more difficult proposition. And if you're going to do that, why do you...
Sorry. Just to interject really quickly, I'll tell you something else. Like there's a really, really good Channel 5 documentary about the Madeline McCann case,
okay.
which is a bit sensationalized, but it is really interesting because they do into everyone that you could talk to, and they do unearth a lot of things. And one of the really interesting things that they said was on the actual day, right, she was 3 years old. Now, it was a Mark Warner resort, so it's like one of those things where you pay for your kids to do certain activities or whatever, and they sent her out sailing. They paid for her to go out on a sailing course that afternoon, right, with a friend, but still, she was 3 years old, right? Now, like I say, I'm a mother, right? You've and also, we live in Norfolk. You've got to be quite competent to sail.
Yes. So what you're saying, she's a bright 3-year-old.
She's got to be quite bold to get in a boat age 3, to get in a boat without your parents. To get in a boat without your parents, with the sailing instructor, right? And then to go out, and then you're on the sea, and it's not like, oh, I'm on a big slide, mummy, and I don't like it. Can you get me down?
No, because you're not there. Yeah, absolutely.
Like, you're on the sea, and your daddy is doing a tennis course, and your mummy is doing a sunbed or something, right? But to go for a 3, again, like when I sort of, this is one of those things where I just, to get on to put your 3-year-old on a boat with another 3-year-old and the sailing instructor, and they go out on the sea, and then whatever, I don't like it, mummy, I don't like it, can you get me back? Well, there is no getting back, right? That's what Madeline McCann did that afternoon. Right. If she's competent enough to do that, in my head, she's competent enough to open the patio door and go out somewhere.
Yeah.
But B, she would wake up if she heard a noise and do something. C, if someone had taken her, they would be like, hang on a minute, this is more than I bargained for. I didn't plan. Okay, I'm going to preface this by saying I'm just making a joke. I'm not being flippant, but I don't want to have to make milkshakes 24/7. I don't want to have to put Peppa Pig on all the time. I just literally wanted to find someone that I could do some sort of paedophilic rape act on. I didn't actually want to have to, obviously Madeline McCann was quite competent for a 3-year-old.
But let me put it there, but you've opened something up that I didn't think of. So she's crept out, and just as bad luck might have it, the German guy is walking by, driving by, whatever, and sees her and then takes his opportunity. That's possible, isn't it?
It's totally possible. But the German guy's intention, we're suggesting, would be to take a child and rape them and kill them.
Yes.
As opposed to taking a child and selling them on to.
But we don't know if that isn't the case, do we? The big problem is we don't know, but we don't know that isn't what happened, and that's a dastardly thing, because that may well have happened, and it may just have been a whole host of really bad coincidence that German guy at that particular time happened to be going past. Because the problem I have, I get, as I said it to you before, is actually somebody coming into the property. If she goes out of the property, then there's a greater likelihood, to my mind, because if you come into the property, even if you're the German guy, you see various opportunities in front of your eyes. If you and by the way, how do you know which room to go into? So that's what I'm saying with the German guy. But
exactly. How do you know which room to go?
Exactly. But if she's got out and the German guy sees her,
to that point,
now it's a different kettle of fish.
To that point, like in the DAPS 7, right? They all had kids.
Yes.
You know, if we were to believe this whole, we went back to check the apartments every 20 minutes, right? They were all going back to check their apartments to check their kids. They all had kids. So why take Madeline?
Yes. Why that?
Out of all the children, because you know there were more. Do you know what I mean? Like if we went back to the whole sort of human trafficking or like, you know, selling on a child to a bereft family.
So I don't agree with the selling bit. I don't think the selling bit holds water, because if you're selling,
I don't either, because you wouldn't take them. You wouldn't take that child, would you?
You take the other two.
There were babies. There were babies in that.
Yeah, I think you take the other two. But so I don't think the selling bit holds water. But I do think it's a potential that he sees her just going by. That's a potential, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
I'm not saying it is the case. I'm just saying it's a potential. And I don't know what the Germans have, because what the Germans don't do as a general rule, the British police tend to tell the press a lot of what they do, because there's this sort of symbiosis between the CID and the press. Sometimes, in my mind, from my background, we never told them anything because we were in that sort of sphere. We didn't want to tell the press anything because we were dealing with intelligence. But from the general CID perspective, they tell them a whole load of stuff. And they argue that why, in a competent perspective, don't get me wrong, they say we tell the press because the press then opens it up to the public, and from the public we get information. So I can see why they do it. But the German police generally don't do it in that way. They generally tell a lot less. They keep a lot more hidden. So maybe we don't know whether this guy just happened to be driving past, just happened to see Madeline, and just happened to do what he did. No,
but I find it quite interesting now that the German police are convinced that you know that he is the prime suspect, but yet they can't release the evidence to support that.
That's a good point. And or let's get another side to that coin. Let's be more technical. Actually, the only people I've seen talking about it is the Staatsanwalt, the district attorney. Now, they do run the cases in the German system. They basically, the police investigate, and these guys direct the cases. So it's the job of the district attorney, the Staatsanwalt as he's called in Germany, to direct the case. So they are the ones who are speaking with the media, and well, it's a particular one guy, isn't it? And he is the one who's telling them this is what we've got. I've never heard any German police officer say anything. Have you?
No. But also, what would be the barrier? Let's talk through your theory. Let's say, you know, Christian Brücker or whatever his name is, the prime suspect, right? Let's say he was driving past in his camper van as Madeline McCann toddled out in her slightly drugged state, out of her apartment, didn't know where she was going, looking for her parents, going, "Mummy, mummy, mummy, where are you? I'll take you
to mummy," you know, that type of thing.
He scooped her up in his camper van and then just drove her to Munich or whatever. Yeah. Okay. And then
absolutely doable, isn't it?
Yeah, all right, that's absolutely doable. But why can't the Germans substantiate this?
Well, the district attorney seems to think he can.
Well, he does, doesn't he? But I mean, the Germans do seem to think they can. Okay, so is this a case of the British media doesn't want to believe it, but the Germans have got all the evidence?
Oh no, that's interesting to me, because you know I'm not totally connected to it, and I don't look at it that much. Is that what the British media are saying, that they don't believe it? Is that what's being said?
Well, at the moment, what's being reported in the British media is that this guy's, been convicted for 5 murders. He's the prime suspect and blah, blah, blah. But they can't actually nail anything to him to pin him down.
On this particular case. Okay. Well, it leaves us with a part 2, doesn't it, at some stage, when we do find out. When we do get the evidence as to what this guy has actually done. And, as I always say, Fergus, you won't know this. We've gone like an hour, something like that. So we're going to have to wrap her up shortly. And I know that we are going to come back together because you want to talk on a subject what I find, which is kind of tied to this, but isn't. That sounds strange. But you wanted to talk about young people and the view of police and policing, didn't you?
1,000,000%. I would love to talk about this. And I just want to say one thing I'd like to say to your listeners. I know that there's the donation thing at the start of all the podcasts, but honestly, I have the privilege because I've got your phone number and we're mates and we can chat all the time, but you could be, you don't need to be sharing this information with the public. We're all privileged that you're sharing this information, and it's interesting and it's fascinating, and I would just ask your listeners that if they can spare the price of a coffee or whatever, or even just a nice comment or a rating or whatever, it's all appreciated, and just remember that this is an inside world that you wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to be in.
Oh, thank you very much for that.
And it's really special, and if you can spare a quid or a couple of or a fiver or whatever, this isn't going to line Carlton's coffers or whatever. This is just going to help produce the podcast.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true.
I wanted to say that for starters, but secondly, yes, we might do a follow-up. Yes, we might do a follow-up. But also, I just wanted your listeners to know that Carlton does actually reply to his emails. Believe it or not, you might not think he does. You might not think he does, but he actually does. Right? You might think that just because he's who he is, he doesn't reply, but he does. So if you've got questions, or if you've got comments over God, if you've got theory, and if you've got, if you've got anything you want to say about today's chat, I know that we've gone quite emotive on today's chat. If you've got anything that you want to comment about, or you want to say, or if you've got any theories or whatever, email Carlton because he replies.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's fair, because this is why I love having you on the show, to be fair, because what I see is a completely different view. And I think it fits well with my idea of the show, because when I first started it, the whole idea was to get the geopolitical view. Well, who pushes that geopolitical perspective but the media? And now
it's us with a bag.
Yeah. It's you. Absolutely. So now I have a spokesperson, and this is why I love sparring with you, because what I get from you is the true, unadulterated perspective of why you put things in the paper, on the TV, on the news, or why you don't. And that's the more important factor, why you don't. So it's interesting to me. And just on this particular one with Madeline McCann and the McCanns, just the fact that the media picked it up and ran with it in a way that it wouldn't be run with for other people. is to me fascinating when I hear why you tell me that is. It's fascinating.
Well, I would say let's round this up with 3 key messages, right?
Okay.
One is, if you're 17-year-old Madeline McCann and you're downloading this podcast right now, get in touch and be our guest.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm being flippant, but do you know what I mean? Secondly, our support goes out to everybody involved in the case, and if anyone has any information, then obviously please do contact the relevant parties. Thirdly, the 8 million children that go missing every year. Let's not be the unsung voice of all of those.
True, very true.
Let's think about that. Let's think about the messaging that's going on there. Let's think about why that's happening and where those children are going.
Very true.
And
very true.
And again, if any of your audience want to talk about that,
yeah, let's consider that. Absolutely.
Let's consider that, and even, you know, if people want to field this as an open forum, we could actually just do a Q&A episode. And
happy to do that. Actually, happy to do a Q&A episode on any issue, to be fair, but definitely on that issue. Why we don't stop such a trade or don't stop such activities. Yeah.
And you know, what's happening to all these 8 million children who don't have 11 million pounds backing to find them.
Mm-hmm. Albeit, I'll finish on this one. The fact you've got 11 million pounds doesn't take away the pain of losing a child. But you know, if you've got nothing to do with
it doesn't take away the need to overturn every stone.
Correct.
It doesn't take away any of those things, but without the sad truth here is that without the media,
yes, very true,
where would this be?
Do you know what I'm going to end on? I'm going to end on this. There was a film many years ago, and I just now can't remember its name, but it's Burt Reynolds, and he plays a great part in it. And Catherine Deneuve, remember, I'm going back now for old people like me. Catherine Deneuve stars up alongside him, and he's a homicide detective in Los Angeles police in like the 1970s. It's just early 70s. And basically, a woman, they call her a girl, but she's probably about 18, 19, is found dead on the beach. And he goes in with Yepik Kato, you know, the black guy then, who's one of the very few black actors in those days that were on with him in the thing. And they go in, he's a detective sergeant, and Burt Reynolds is a detective inspector. Or they call him inspector and sergeant. They work him there in America. Basically, they go into the office of the captain, and the captain says, right, what's on from last night? What's happening? He says, oh, there's a girl dead, found on the beach. Okay, what's she like? And he says, blonde, blah, 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 blah. He says, yeah, okay, interesting. But is she anybody? And that's what I'll leave you with. And he says, but well, no, she is nobody. Unfortunately,
it's called Hustle, isn't it? It's called.
I think it might be. It might be. Yeah, it may well be. I think it's a brilliant movie. You know, Bert's played in some rubbish, but he's played in some fantastic movies.
Yeah, I remember this. Like, I've seen this. It's called Hustle. And yeah, exactly. Yeah, no. Right, okay.
You know what I'm saying? That's your answer to your 8 million. It's nobody. And I think that's what I'll leave you on, ladies and gentlemen, for tonight. So hopefully you'll listen again next week. Thank you, Fergus. All the best.
Bye. Good night, Carlton.
See you again.
If you'd like to help Carlton keep producing the Black Spy podcast and receive episodes and information that's only available to Carlton's special Patreon agents, then you can donate as little as £3, €4 or $5 a month by signing up with Patreon. See the Black Spy podcast notes or Google Patreon Black Spy podcast and pledge your monthly amount. You can even win the opportunity to be a guest on the show. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe for free.
Here is a working class spy telling his stories, the secrets, the lives of spies. Feel free to message Carlton King on all socials and give this show 5 stars on Apple iTunes and subscribe so you never miss a single episode. For your ears only.
I was a member of Her Majesty's Secret Intelligence Service.